She got brought in as a young model. Like, she was trying to start off her modeling career, and she got introduced to them, and flown out to the island, and from there it was kind of like, you can't go anywhere, and you're now a prisoner. So she was very quickly brought into that, not as a child, but as a young model. Right.
And on the wall there was a big artwork of a woman being raped by a walrus.
And I have to tell you, after 40 some odd years and speaking to everybody in the business, and I know them all, classified and unclassified, nobody has a clue.
That I conclude that there's definitely something here. But I think the more interesting conclusion is if something is here, it's likely been here longer than humans have even been civilized.
And then there was a sexual experience, and I could see that this female who was there had blue skin. My hands were on her thighs, and I could feel her skin, and it was not like normal human skin. It was much thicker.
Thanks for tuning back into the Gabriel Speaks Show, everyone. I am so glad you're here. We had a couple of fantastic interviews. If you haven't watched those, please go back and check those out. One amazing interview with Eric Mitchell, who also goes by the nickname The Antenna, has had quite the experience since his interaction with an orb back in 2012. I strongly suggest you go and check out that interview. Yes, that is the same Eric Mitchell who had an interaction, a telepathic interaction with Michael Masters, who is kind of a promoter of the possible future human theory as far as some of the NHI, or is it just HI from the future we're experiencing. So great interview. I encourage you to check that out. After that, we had a great interview with Eric Hecker. It was funny. It was enlightening. And a couple parts of it, quite frankly, were a little shocking. And Eric Hecker is a whistleblower that went before Congress on 2 separate occasions and even went in 2 different skiffs to speak with Congress about a directed energy weapon that the IceCube facility in Antarctica is. And they are using the cover of a scientific research study, but they've actually discovered a way to make earthquakes happen in different locations around the world. So I encourage you to check out that interview, check out his website, deciphering.tv, where he has all of his evidence, all of his ducks in a row, and a great history of his previous interviews before he sat down with me. And we hope to get Eric back on the show, if for nothing else, just the laughs. Cracks me up. So today, what are we talking about? Oh my gosh, we got a lot to catch up on. We've got this crazy Epstein stuff, right? We've got the list not coming out. We've got some folks saying he was involved in I guess anti-gravity is not the correct term, but gravitic propulsion type research. Something I had never really heard until Eric Weinstein dropped a bomb on X and informed us all. We're going to get into some crazy stuff. We're also going to cover a very eye-opening interview with Jim Semivan on the Leto Files. Let's just say Jim is not holding back and saying whatever he is legally allowed to say. And some of it, quite frankly, is a little unsettling, but we're going to go through it, check it out, and talk about what that means. We've also got Gary Nolan on the Jordan Peterson show talking about his take on non-human intelligences, how long they've been around, and what that means. So some great stuff there. We're going to get a little bit into a file that Eric Hecker just posted on X about CIA scouting for remote viewers. The document doesn't quite clarify whether or not these are civilians or government employees, but pretty eye-opening as far as what they were doing, and this goes back to the 80s. Interesting. We're also going to get into Matthew Roberts. Matthew Roberts was the gentleman that had an experience. He was one of the first folks to view the gimbal video. He is in Navy intelligence, and he had an experience with an alien that got a little freaky. So super interesting, and not the first person to say that, because we've heard Strieber say that in the past, and we've heard other experiencers talk about a sexual type of interaction with these beings. All right, so before we get going, don't forget to like and subscribe to this show. If we can grow this channel, share it with your friends. Make sure to subscribe, like, hit the little bell thingy so you get notified when new videos come out. That's how we're going to get better guests on here. And if you haven't noticed, in my interviews, I like to take kind of a laid-back approach. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a scientist. I'm just about to graduate with my bachelor's, and I'm in my 40s, if that doesn't tell you anything about my level of professionalism in this field. Clearly, all of this stuff is driven by a lot of my interests and a lot of interests that other folks have as well. So I like to get folks on that research this stuff, as well as the news or whatever we may be interested in, and just talk to them as people. I don't need to break any balls or debunk anyone. There's so many people that are out there doing that. I just want to have a conversation. And I think that that's very, very important, to get to know folks on an individual level and understand how they kind of view the world after they've had these moments of, for lack of a better term, ontological shock, or moments of, people even slip into depression at times. So researching this field can be very, very intense. And I think getting to know those folks that do it on or around is one of my favorite things to do. So thank you, Eric Mitchell. Thank you, Eric Hecker, both, for coming on and just being real and sharing your time with us. So much appreciated, and I know that all my subscribers appreciated it. Okay, moving on. Let's get to this Epstein stuff. Okay, now here is Tucker Carlson at this event speaking about Epstein and his experience in covering it, even though he kind of promoted the current administration. So let's check this out. Let's go ahead and check this out here.
But that's how I felt. And I think that's really at the heart of why the Epstein thing is so distressing. I mean, the guy was some weird sex freak who was abusing girls. We knew that. But the fact that the U.S. government, the one that I voted for, refused to take my question seriously and instead said, case closed, shut up, conspiracy theorist, was too much for me. And I don't think the rest of us should be satisfied with that. And by the way, let me just say really quickly, because I was so mad about it that I think I found out part of what's going on. I think we are going to find out more. And I think the truth, for whatever it's worth, in case you're interested, is that the DOJ didn't release lots of incriminating sex videos with Epstein and his billionaire pals because they don't have them. They don't have them because when the original search warrant was served, 2007, I think, possibly 2006, I think 7, it was basically designed to protect Epstein.
Okay, so he's saying the original search warrant was designed to protect Epstein. That's pretty wild.
The search warrant was written in such a way to make sure that the feds never got their hands on the actually incriminating evidence. It's another way of saying the cover-up has been going on since 2007, almost 20 years. And so the real question is not, was Jeffrey Epstein a weirdo who was abusing girls? Yes, we can answer that. The real question is, why was he doing this, on whose behalf, and where did the money come from? And those are the questions that need to be answered. And I think it's entirely fair to ask them. And it's not adequate to say anyone who asked them is somehow desecrating the memory of little girls who died in Texas are not going to put up with that answer. I don't care who gives that answer. That is not acceptable. And I think the real answer is Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of intel services, probably not American. And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working? How does a guy go from being a math teacher at the Dalton School in the late 70s with no college degree to having multiple airplanes, a private island, and the largest residential house in Manhattan? Where did all the money come from? And no one has ever gotten to the bottom of that because no one has ever tried. And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed.
Oh, boy. Okay. So here we go, and you hear the crowd cheering the Israel thing. And it's true. We are very limited about, how critical we can be of their interactions and decisions that they make over there, and wars that they get involved with. So the implication here, I think, from Tucker is that that Epstein was some type of agent of said state, and he was over here collecting information on these rich and powerful folks, trying to get them in compromising positions, obviously, and hold that evidence over their head. Yikes. Is that what was going on? And look, it's not the first time I've heard it, but when you start really letting it sink in and think about the implications, it's pretty shocking. Let's let Tucker continue here.
Into thinking that that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that. There's nothing anti-Semitic about saying that. There's nothing even anti-Israel about saying that. I've spent my entire life pretty much in Washington, where I knew and loved a number of people, including one very close person who worked at CIA. That has never prohibited me from saying, I think the CIA has done some horrible things, murdered a bunch of people, participated in the murder of a sitting U.S. president. It's got a whole trail of crimes. That doesn't make me a disloyal American. It doesn't make me anti-American in any sense. I was born here. My family's been here for hundreds of years. I love this country. That's why I live here. So criticizing the behavior of a government agency does not make you a hater. It makes you a free person.
And I have to agree here. That's what freedom is the ability to be critical. Now, breaking laws, that's another thing. But being critical of laws, that's completely okay. Having that debate, having those conversations, that's what it's supposed to be about, the fourth estate. That's what we're supposed to have. We're supposed to be able to have these conversations. And it's not hate speech to consider if what one country is doing is in our best interest, in our national best interest.
You're a citizen. You're allowed to do that because you're not a slave. You're a citizen. And you have a right to expect that your government will not act against your interests, and you have a right to demand that foreign governments not be allowed to act against your interest. That's not creepy. It shouldn't be forbidden. And yet all of us have trained ourselves to believe that you can't say that somehow. That that's like too naughty and forbidden. And
Now, is that correct? I don't know. I certainly see a lot of it. But I think that the conversation is moving forward. And I think that folks are challenging that invisible barrier and starting to question what the heck we're doing. So case in point, let's check out this was just a few days ago. Jesse Michaels had Kurt Metzger on talking about this Epstein thing. So let me get this pulled up here and we'll take a look at this.
What do you guys think of this Kash Patel going on Joe's show, it being like,
So here's
if I
what
would have,
I've heard your
he
opinion.
goes,
I wanna hear it
Epstein killed
again, man.
himself.
Like,
He goes,
Yeah.
Epstein killed himself,
Hey,
and
number
then you have Dan
such
Bongino next to him
bullshit.
on other interviews.
coming in his
Okay,
sportswear and telling us what.
first
to
of all,
think.
number one.
Athleisure.
I want to make this clear because this is how occult fucking projecting yourself magic works. First, you reframe the argument wrong.
Yeah.
I don't care if Epstein killed. We're not looking for justice for Epstein.
Right.
Okay, so first they keep it on that to trick you, right? Now we're not even talking about why are all the people that went there still in power?
Exactly.
Hey, Trump's in now.
Right.
Hey, I remember QAnon. Where's all the arrests? Where's all the whatevers? Then I'll watch UFO shit and they go, oh yeah, they actually executed these people on the moon. Right?
And then you got like the discrepancy with Pam Bondi saying there's thousands of pages, they got all this evidence.
Yeah,
Patel saying this, and it's like, whoa, this is
I
a
forgot
massive,
Iran. I forgot about that.
What's going on here?
Yeah,
Like, you know,
there's a clear discrepancy there, and then it's like, it's just, if you zoom out, it's so obvious that this was this compromise gathering technique
Blackmail
in order
operation.
to blackmail
Absolutely.
operation, in order to
Yeah.
control things at the highest
makes sense. It
level.
makes sense. Like,
Who are they blackmailing? That's what we want to know. I don't care about the list.
I kind of wonder if, like, the Elon Trump thing, I don't know, like, I wonder.
believe Elon more than Trump because Elon's black guy and his. Now, I watch people say this. I can't believe how stupid this is. Oh, he must have been on ketamine and he rage tweeted. Is that what ketamine does? The horse tranquilizer.
No, you have to believe that Elon believes that Trump was on the Epstein list.
For sure. It was interesting
he said
that
files, and Trump is. We know that already.
Yeah.
Elon gave us no new information. He threw out a shot, but he didn't reveal anything. Trump is in it. Everyone who's in charge is in that file.
But that's the thing.
Louis Black was on and blew the whole thing wide open. I've tweeted it. I repeat it all the time. Louis Black went to Epstein's mansion in New York with Bobby Slayton, my buddy from doing the Nasty Show.
Right.
I know that Bobby and Louis Black are not doing a thing. He was an influential New York billionaire in the biggest house in New York. That's crazy rich. Okay, so yeah, all right. I've gone all kinds of. Dude, I met all kinds of people from this. Yeah. Louis Black's story is so interesting. He walks in the door. There's a marker board where they go in, and there's it looks like football plays or something. Right. And Epstein goes, "Yeah, the defense minister of Israel was just here. We were just going over defensive ideas." And Louis Black says in the video, look, it's on my Twitter. Look it up. He goes. He got so creeped out. He goes, first of all, where the fuck was that guy here?
Right.
Why would he talk to you about it? Why are you telling me this? Right?
Wasn't it documented that Ehud Barak and Epstein?
Oh, yeah, they were picked up.
And Bill Richardson.
Yeah.
Bill Richardson, New Mexico governor.
Yeah, and, you talked to the New Zealand woman.
I did, yeah.
One of the victims, right?
Yeah, Juliet Byrant, I think her second name is.
And what did she have to say?
Well, she got brought in as a young model. Like, you know, she was trying to start off her modeling career, and she got introduced to them, and, you know, flown out to the island, and from there it was kind of like, you can't go anywhere, and you're now a prisoner. So she was very quickly brought into that, not as a child, but as a young model. Right.
And on the wall there was a big artwork of a woman being raped by a walrus.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'll share it with you if you want to share it. The scary thing is that it's not really a painting. It looks more like a photograph. And the girl's lying on a glacier, and she's got like ECG things.
Oh, Lord.
And she's being basically raped by a walrus.
And she, alongside some of the other women, think that they were actually harvesting their eggs.
They were.
You know, like Zorro Ranch, where they were trying to... Yeah, well, the thing with Epstein was he was obsessed with eugenics and creating his own race. Like, he would talk about his own
egg-shaped
DNA.
dick people.
Yeah.
Like
so,
that
like,
egg guy, you know.
Right, so like maybe... maybe he was doing something along those lines with people like that. She certainly felt that way.
Okay, because if they were taking eggs, they've got underground laboratories, right? So then 1996... they cloned Dolly the sheep. They cloned a sheep. 1997, Bill Clinton banned use of federal funds for human cloning. Apparently, in 2002, they cloned the first baby, Eve, in December. So, right, I'm taken there in September. I think they've taken my eggs. They clone a baby in 2002. No one ever hears about anything again. It's all on 60 Minutes or BBC, one of those things. They were all talking about when a human's going to be cloned. Suddenly, it's shut down.
I mean, someone like Epstein seems like he was very multifaceted. Like, there's an element to him where it was like almost like your primary objective is compromat, right? Primary objective is to do that. But then he's using his money, and he's like, I'm going to create a race of my own people. It's like this dude.
Why did he get
crazy?
Well,
crazy.
I wonder if, because this is a full schizo right now.
Oh, yeah,
but
let's do it.
so Charles Manson was probably an MK Ultra patient.
Oh yeah, I think
I would
so.
say definitely.
So definitely, right? You
Nicholas
have
Shrek maintained him in
book,
prison.
Tom O'Neill Chaos, and
Yep.
you have Jolly West, who's like
Yep.
running this thing, had probably an office at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic where Manson was always going.
Yeah.
And then you have this kind of conversion of Manson from this kind of petty criminal to the sex god kind of cult leader or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's tons of evidence there. Here's the trippiest thread of the Manson thing that connects with Epstein. That's so weird. So Manson would carry around a book called Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein.
Did you read that in
Sci-fi
school?
bestseller.
No.
I did.
1968. Great book.
Yeah.
So he would carry this around, but Manson was illiterate. So, and then he models his whole life off this book.
Huh.
His son, he calls Michael Valentine or whatever, who's like one of the characters in the book.
Right.
Jubal, Roger Smith is his parole officer. Jubal is the protector in the book. He calls him Jubal.
What?
He tries to start a race war, which is what they're trying to do
Right,
in
the
the
whole
book or whatever.
helter-skelter thing.
Wait,
and like,
Exactly,
know-
Helter Skelter, yeah. So,
Oh my God.
So okay, but just fucking listen for a second. So this is what's crazy. Donald Barr is the headmaster of Dalton. He gives Epstein his first job at Dalton School, which is in New York, this prep school or whatever. And his son is William Barr, who's the attorney general under Bush 41 and under Trump, who basically obfuscated fucking justice
Right.
to get Epstein,
Right.
out of trouble. So Donald Barr writes a sci-fi novel called Space Relations.
Okay.
And this is real. It's about
new to me. This is new to me.
This is so nuts.
He
It's about
texted me. I read it.
Right.
it's
It's
so great.
unreadable almost.
It's almost unreadable, and it's about this like human traveling to like an extraterrestrial planet, and he is sold as a sex slave.
Okay.
Why is he going though? Do you remember why he's going?
Why is he going
To
again?
negotiate with the rulers of the galaxy.
The rulers of the
to
galaxy.
end slavery.
Yeah, I don't even know what to even. So this guy was involved in eugenics. And we all know the CP stuff. I mean, now we're talking about MK Ultra, Mossad involvement, blackmail, bribery. So I'm starting to think the list or whatever is probably just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, are we talking national security implications? Is this video going to get 30 views because it's going to get totally throttled? We all thought we were going to get this stuff once the current administration went in there. And now we're being told by the current administration that we're dumb and stupid if we want the information. So it's quite the 180 and very just really confusing about how the whole thing was handled.
Another guy that you interviewed, John Ramirez.
Yeah, he's an interesting
A
cat.
super interesting guy, former CIA.
Yeah, GS-15.
GS-15, and he's come out now, and I think on your show as well, saying that like he's sure we have hybrid programs, human alien hybrid programs.
Yeah.
And that's the word that Louis Elizondo can't say that everyone in the Pentagon is expecting him to say someday, is that we're all hybrids. Personally, I believe this is one of the core secrets.
Hybrids, again, we're talking about an extraterrestrial presence hybridizing. Is that how you mixing their DNA with humans somehow, and creating hybrids? So you have John Ramirez, CIA, saying, "Yep, that's a thing," and hang tight because Semivan also talks about this.
Right.
John Ramirez, super interesting guy. I think he's actually genuinely passionate about the subject, and he's an experiencer. You know, you find a lot of these people in the agency, like within the CIA, you know, it seems to be a hallmark of like these guys who have got quite high up in the ranks of that particular agency is they've got like some weird ideas and
Super
like, you know,
weird.
that's what they want, right? They want out of the box thinkers. So of course you're going to get people in these agencies that believe in all of that. You know what's interesting about the Templars as well in respects to Egypt. Just a little bit of quick trivia.
Yeah.
Is that the Great Pyramid of Giza? You know, it's 8-sided.
The Pyramid of Giza is 8-sided.
8-sided, very subtle, and it
Like
can be
the
seen.
Goldberg?
It can be seen from above. But if you get an aerial of this at a certain point in time, you can actually see that instead of 4 sides, it's got these like indentations that create an 8-sided pyramid.
Whoa.
The Templar flag is an 8-sided pyramid turned into a 2D shape. So if you take the Templar flag and you create it into a 3-dimensional object, you get the Great Pyramid of Giza.
I mean, Zawi Hawass. Did you watch Zawi?
Of course, I watched the supercut. I couldn't do the 3 hours.
It
I
looked
couldn't
like
do the
they
3
were
hours.
arguing over a carpet.
It was fucking insane.
Joe, that was probably the worst podcast he's ever done.
He said it.
Yeah,
like
he
the
said
next
it.
guest, he was like, "That was the worst fucking podcast."
Yeah.
For a podcaster to say that's the worst ever, I couldn't sit through the whole thing, but I watched this snippet of him saying he's a scientist and then flashing to him saying he's not a scientist. It had to be at least 5 or 6 times. It was so humorous. Crazy.
At some point, he's bombing. So he's doing so badly. And then halfway in, he goes, I'm doing a speech in Houston.
Will you speak in Houston? Will you introduce me? He's like, fuck no.
It's like, dude, I'm busy.
I'm busy.
All I do is look for themes. Like Diana Pasulka, I think she made this word up, mythemes, but I like it. That's the Legos the stories are built out of.
Right.
And they repeat. So I watch everything, man. I don't just watch, like, I'm on a news show. See, and I notice with everybody that follows this stuff, just the idea that you're wondering if the intel people are going to, that's because you're compartmentalized.
Right.
Well, the ultimate compartmentalization would also be
Your
through
brain.
These occult sort of, compartmentalizing a person.
Yeah.
And like
Exactly.
there's a Terrence McKenna quote that I sent you. That's like,
I love that guy.
amazing, right? And you've done some
I think
awesome
I've
videos
absorbed
on
every lecture he's ever done. He like haunts my brain.
He's incredible. And he says, a secret is not something that isn't told. It's something that cannot be told.
Right.
Moving on, let's get into this Jim Semivan interview. This was a fantastic interview. No matter what you think of Jim Semivan, whether you believe what he has to say or don't believe a word that comes out of his mouth, it's a very interesting interview. And Leto Files does an outstanding job in this interview of just kind of letting Jim speak. It's a very long interview. I've condensed it down quite a bit to some of the more just really interesting moments. So let's get this guy going here.
Now, disclosure means scaring 7-year-olds. Now, you have children. I mean, what the hell do you tell them? My feeling has always been be very careful about contacting something you don't know anything about. I look at what happened to me as more of a human rights violation than anything else. So I'm very, very interested in trying to find out more about it, what it actually was, what it is. And I have to tell you, after 40 some odd years and speaking to everybody in the business, and I know them all, classified and unclassified, nobody has a clue. But even the people in the legacy programs, the one that's been studying this for the government for like 80 years, I mean, they don't know. We like to live in a world that's, we see it as very materialistic and mechanistic, and we rarely go into the spiritual or rarely go into some of the weirder aspects of this. But if you want to know where the real world exists, it's not in what you see around you. It's what you don't see. What the government is not doing, the government isn't saying that this isn't real. What the government is basically saying, we're not going to officially confirm that this is true. We're not going to come out officially and say that. And I think the reason for that is because they don't know what to say. And there's this concept now that's being discussed, limited disclosure versus catastrophic disclosure. Catastrophic disclosure is where the president comes out, and it has to be the president. It can't be anybody else. Comes out and says, all right, we're not alone in the universe, and there are 3 to 6 different types of alien species or non-human intelligence that have visited the planet and are currently on the planet. We have crashed saucers, and just basically lets loose with everything that the government knows. Well, the president's job is to defend the Constitution of the United States, and it's also to defend the American people. So that's what the military's job is. That's what the intelligence community's job is. And now you're going out and you're telling people, there are these non-human intelligences that are on this planet, have been on this planet probably for 2,000 years, recorded history, and they have this ability to take you at any moment. They have the ability to plant memories in your mind. They can control you. They can control me. They can control everybody. So essentially what he's saying is we're no longer at the top of the food chain. Now you're just, people are saying, well, what's reality? What's true? And does civilization break down? We don't have a taxonomy. We don't have an ontology to even speak of this. We don't have a lexicon. We don't know anything. This thing shows itself when it wants to show itself. It tells us very, very little about it. So we're totally in the dark.
I had a conversation, if you go back to one of my previous interviews with Brian Jackson, about is disclosure and what that means for the population. And catastrophic disclosure, and how Putoff gets into it a little bit on his interview with Joe Rogan, when they had, under the Bush White House, a meeting about possibly disclosing to the American public that there is this other, or other plural, NHI out there, possibly human, but most likely NHI, or both. Could be 1, could be 1 million, and any number in between, that seem to be interacting with either humans or the planet in some way, shape, or form. And they decided that the issues that would cause with people, just completely shutting down and detaching, could be catastrophic. People stop going to work, people stop paying their bills, and you can just imagine where it goes from there when you go to the grocery store and you can't get items that you need. Just gets worse and worse, right? We saw it during COVID, what happens when folks can't go to work, the backup that happens, and the nightmare that ensues. And this is what we're talking about with catastrophic disclosures. So the thing is, as he says in the beginning, disclosure means disclosing this stuff to 7-year-olds. Do you want to have that conversation? I think it's a personal preference myself, and I think that's why we should be told the truth, because you're not going to be able to prepare and know what's real if you're not being told what's real, in my opinion. However, I do understand the national security implications and the need to keep the wheel rolling in society. It's a difficult question, and that's why I like this interview, and I wanted to share this interview because it makes you think, and that's the most important thing, is we need to be thinking this stuff through. All right, I'm going to shut up, get off my soapbox, and let Semivan continue here.
And then there's the whole idea of limited disclosure. Well, the president comes out and the president says, well, we're not alone on the planet or on the universe, and there are other things here, but you can't just say that. The president can't just say that, because it will beg a million questions. Do we create a problem where there isn't a problem? Because right now, NHI, the phenomenon, UAP, does not impinge on most people's lives. And I say most people, I'm talking about 95% of the world population. It just doesn't. And it also enormously changed religion and our view of the world itself. People would be questioning reality all the time. But I think it's going to be a mixed bag. I think there's going to be a ton of positive effects. The biggest one being we get to know our real history, right? We get to know who we really are. It's our birthright to know what the truth is. And this is, I think, is what, with a lot of pro disclosure people are saying. It's nobody's right to, it's not the government's right to say, I'm not going to tell you this. There's a group of people who believe that the reason why we don't have disclosure is because the phenomena is actually controlling it. It's basically saying, no, you're not going to do that. I had one person tell me, who was in the know, said, well, the craft is actually basically alive. It's a living thing, and that the entities that drive the craft actually become part of the craft in places. I've seen orbs with faces in them. I've seen orbs change colors. I've seen orbs. Well, I haven't seen this particular type of orb, but an orb, that lands and then gets bigger, and then something crawls out of it. What it does is it just tells you we live in the strangest damn place.
I wanted to stop here because this comes up a lot, especially in my research and conversations that I have, that trickster element, right? That element of, gosh, there's something here, but we're not able to put it all together scientifically, mathematically, sensically. But there's something there like synchronicities and things of that nature. So there is this trickster element, almost like the ancient jinn.
And we haven't even tapped into probably 90%. Nobody knows what dark energy is. Nobody knows what dark matter is. We know it. We think we know it exists. These beings are if they have any message at all, they're saying it has to do with nuclear energy and climate change, right? That seems to be the two primary things, right? Don't screw up the planet is essentially what they're saying. Or they're not saying it, but they're sort of showing you in a way, right? This could be looked at as sort of an initiation rite, something that's highly disruptive. And it also has these sociological effects, because what happens when you see a UFO? What happens when you have these experiences? It does change you. The truth is so woo-woo. So, as Jock likes to talk about it, is so absurd. Absolutely absurd. I mean, go back to my experience. I mean, look, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's that's why I don't like to call it an abduction experience, and why I'm sort of mad about it. It's like, screw you. You know what I mean? You throw this crap at me and you lay it at my feet, and then I'm supposed to figure this out.
So Jim Semivan did have an abduction experience. And he is now actually very interested in the MILABs, the military lab abduction theory, which is very hot topic when it first came out back in the day, and very hot topic to this day, because it does ruffle a lot of feathers. It can trigger experiencers or abductees. It can trigger those that do believe it's the military, those that are part of the military and don't want to believe a military would have anything to do with something like this. My guest I had on a few episodes ago, Brian Jackson, did a lot of research into MILABs, and in fact mentioned it's one of the topics out there now that he's a little more interested in, would like to get more clarification on. So I don't know if that will ever happen, because it's such a, if it's proven out, the heads that would have to roll, I just don't know if that would be a thing. Or maybe it's part of these legacy type programs. And so basically anybody that up at the top that gave the order, is probably gone now anyway. So again, another reason I think we should have a conversation and full disclosure about what all this stuff is, at least what we know.
Disclosure means scaring 7-year-olds. Now you have children. I mean, what the hell do you tell them? I had a psychologist friend of mine at the agency asked me if I would speak to her teenage daughter because her daughter was fascinated with UAP and UFOs. And I said no. And I said because if she asked me a good 14-year-old question, and 14-year-olds are pretty smart, and I said I'm not going to lie to her. I have this list of things, what I know about UAP, and none of it is good. I mean, it's good. It's good in the sense that wow, this whole different reality opens up, but it's not good in the sense that this is an intelligence that does act as a control mechanism and does control. It can control us. It can dictate to us. It doesn't seem to be doing that, on a daily basis and affecting people's lives, but it can do that. When Dave Grush came out, Grush didn't come out with papers, right? He didn't come out with any documentation. He came out with just saying what he said, and it was all accurate. It's not a simple problem set. I mean, it's a difficult problem set.
Obviously.
And if it wasn't for the fact that humans are humans, I mean, it's just we have a nasty side to us. We just do. They have a nasty side, and so I don't trust humans with it. I trust the government.
So I just want to pause it for a second here, and this is why you need to listen to the words and be careful, because he just said, I don't trust humans with this because there are bad humans, but I trust the government. Well, it's humans that run the government, Jim. And he does go on for another 5-10 minutes about, oh, well, the government's made mistakes, but they've always tried to account for those and move forward and take a better direction forward. But don't humans do that as well, Jim? I mean, that's kind of what being human is. It's having follies and learning from those mistakes, hopefully, and moving forward, a better person, a more enlightened person, and can hopefully share that with others, that lesson with others. So it's very interesting to say you don't trust humans, but it makes me pause, and probably my subscribers pause for a second and say, what is that all about?
In the beginning, there were some really extraordinary narratives that came out and some very odd books that came out. And I used to discount them. I don't do that anymore. One of them is the topic of MILABs, military abductions.
Yeah. MILABs, military labs. We're talking CIA working with other interests, abducting citizens, abducting military personnel, abducting foreigners, and doing God knows what. It's still up in the air about what exact tests or types of medical procedures were done to these folks. This does not discount actual abductions. MILABs and folks that have researched MILABs have not said they are the source of every single abduction case. What they have said is they are the source of a big chunk of what we refer to as abductions. This is our own government working with who knows what type of entity to abduct us. Now that's frightening, especially when you think about it's our own defense. It's our own folks that are supposed to defend us that is doing this to a small percentage of the population. Cannon wrote a book back in the 80s called The Controllers, and it was about MILABs and got a lot of negative backlash from both sides. He got negative backlash from the military and government side because of what he was putting out there. And he got negative backlash and pushback from experiencers saying, dude, I just wrapped my head around the reality that I had been abducted, and now you're telling me it was not alien, that it was people behind this, and that there were drugs and weird things done to my brain to make me not remember. And so he had both sides really barking at him, so much so that he kind of disappeared. Now he's still out there. Think he's done an interview, or just did an interview a couple years ago after taking pretty much over a 30-year kind of hiatus from all of it because of all of the negative stuff that he had to deal with. Now, in the middle of all this, and shared a very interesting voicemail that he received from the wife of one Colonel John Alexander. This caught my attention so much, I had to track down the interview that includes the voicemail so that I could share it with y'all. So without further ado, let's check out this interaction of Victoria Alexander, John Alexander, Colonel John Alexander's wife, reaching out to Mr. Cannon about his book covering military abductions.
I had been keeping an eye on John Alexander, primarily because he wrote an article called The New Mental Battlefield for Military Review, which was basically about the field use of mind control and behavioral and perceptual alteration, specifically using psychoelectronic weaponry to achieve these effects. I was surprised when a woman who was a friend of mine, the former Victoria Lacoste, ended up marrying John Alexander. I had shared a lot of information with Victoria over the years. She was a UFO buff up in the New York area. Well, when she married John Alexander, I decided to break off my relations with her. She was getting very weird on me. She would break off conversations halfway through and say, I can't talk about that. That's classified. And although I was getting some good information about John Alexander from her for a while, about 6 months after they got married and we hadn't spoken for a while, Victoria called me up and said, Martin, as an ex-friend, I have to warn you. John and Hal, that's John Alexander and Hal Puthoff, are real pissed off at you, and they've given the situation over to Gordon to handle. Watch out. Gordon, I won't give his last name right now.
Well, I will. Gordon Novell.
He's a very,
Gordon Novell, of course, was an individual that former district attorney of New Orleans, Jim Garrison, was investigating, having to do with the JFK assassination.
That's right, and
a very, very good friend of John Blair.
Actually, I think Gordon Novell was investigating Jim Garrison, and there was documentary evidence to that effect, and a letter in Gordon Novell's, written by Gordon Novell, that was found in his apartment. And he now admits that he was basically infiltrating Garrison's organization. Gordon Novell.
Well, what you're suggesting, though, Martin, is that Victoria Lacoste Alexander was suggesting that Gordon Novell was looking for you on behalf of her husband, John Alexander?
No, I should be very clear about this. As far as I know, Gordon didn't know anything about my situation. All I had done was found out from Victoria that John Alexander and Hal Puthoff, these two people who were involved with UFOs and parapsychology and all this other weird stuff, that they were associated with Gordon Novell.
Do you have this tape?
Yes, I have it right here.
How about playing it?
John Alexander is the head of non-lethal weaponry research at Los Alamos National Laboratory, and very importantly, he was a candidate for Undersecretary of Defense under Les Aspin, and may well still be a candidate for that position. And I was able to confirm through his former commanding officer, General Spurt Stubblebine of INSCOM, that it was in fact John Alexander who initiated this threat, which you are about to hear.
Martin, as an ex-friend, I need to warn you, John and Hal are really pissed, and they're turning it over to Gordon to handle. Watch out.
I have a friend of mine, Melinda Leslie, this wonderful person who had a terrible experience and with that. And she told me her story, and, you can't listen to her saying, this person is not lying to me. And I don't think she's imagining things either, but I don't know how to explain her predicament. And she's not the only one. And the Skywatcher thing, I think, is very important. And I'm not sure whether this, I think they call it psionics or something like that, where somebody's sitting down and they get a remote viewer and try to make contact. I think there's something to be said about that. I don't know whether that's going to really manifest into anything. It's like the people to go out I know Stephen Greer has these things where you go out and you watch, and you try to make connections. Usually they're orbs. You'll see them. Chris Bledsoe does this also. My feeling has always been be very careful about contacting something you don't know anything about.
Okay, now I recently had on Eric Mitchell, and Eric Mitchell is an experiencer. He is able to make contact sort of similar to Bledsoe with orbs and other type of energies that are out there. Eric Mitchell knows what he's doing. And what Mr. Semivan is saying here is that if you don't know what you're doing and you're opening yourself up to something that you don't quite understand, you should pause and consider what it is that you're doing, because you can open yourself up to the wrong type of energy or the wrong type of force or spirit or whatever you want to call it, whatever nomenclature you need to give it. But be careful about what and who you're opening yourself up to. Is the download worth the terms and agreement? And when we're talking about your sovereignty, your autonomy, make sure this is a terms and agreement that you read very carefully, not like one on our phones where we just scroll and click OK.
But you want to walk into a situation where you at least know that you have a good shot of coming out of it in one piece or without it blowing up in your face. When you're dealing with this phenomenon, you don't have that. I don't know what I'm going up against. There's a trickster element to it. There's a deceitful element to it. We know that they can basically control you, and we have no defenses against this.
Now, does that sound like something you want to invite in and open yourself up to? Personally, not so much.
The only thing that seemed to work, and this is mostly with poltergeist activities, is basically telling the thing, just go away, don't bother me anymore. Sometimes that works. But I always say, don't give it energy. Just talk to it in a nice way. Don't piss it off. Just tell it in a nice way. Just look, I don't need this in my life.
So quite frightening, but something to consider. And if you're having those type of experiences and they're having a negative impact on you, do your research. And Jim's been doing this long enough. I think that may actually be a piece of good advice if you're suffering from some type of negative experience.
The president decides, how this works. The president gets to decide, who he nominates to run a particular agency, and then that person then runs a particular program. And that person's responsible to the president. But as I always said, 14 presidents haven't said a damn word about this. So the government, I think, has told somebody in the Gang of Eight over the years. I think Congress has known about this. But the president has an enormous powers. And these are in presidential executive action documents that give him the power to do these kind of programs without notifying Congress, because he thinks it's in the best interest of the country not to. He doesn't have to notify Congress. I think he does sometimes. Okay. But that's legal. People blame the CIA or NSA or DOD for not talking about this. This is a program that doesn't belong to them. This is a program that belongs to the president of the United States.
Basically, definitely hitting on the end there. This is the president's call. This is not CIA. This is not NSA, Department of Energy, Space Force, Air Force. This is the executive branch at the highest level. This is up to the president, whether he wants to disclose this information or not. So we can get mad about why we're not getting it, but we know whose decision it is. So keep that in mind. I think it's very important to keep that in mind. Now, I'm about 2/3 of the way through the book American Cosmic by Diana Pasulka, which is just a fascinating read so far. I'm just flying through it. And Gary Nolan, one of the doctors in the book, now he had a pseudonym in the book. I'm not going to say it because I don't know. I'm just not going to. You'll figure it out as soon as you open the book. In fact, I think he even posted about it on X saying, hey, there's this character in this book. So Gary Nolan, and if you don't know Nolan, I suggest, doing a quick search on him. Very interesting character, super intelligent. He's a professor. He does a lot of research on the bio side of these UAP interactions and dealings, and really has a lot of interesting things to say in this interview with Jordan Peterson. I kind of, once again, condensed it a little bit, but I think it's important, especially coming on the heels of that Semivan interview. This just dropped a couple days ago.
They'd like you to think that it's some thing out of Lockheed, perhaps. But, these things were being seen before Lockheed existed.
Now, that what he's referring to there is Coulthard coming out on, I forget whose show it was, and saying essentially that the Tic Tac is Lockheed Martin technology, saying it matter-of-factly.
Right? They were seen in World War II. They were seen subsequent to World War II, long before we had any capabilities. So what is it? I don't care. I don't care if it's human or not. I just want to have reproducible findings. And yet, somehow, for some reason, the government won't release the information that it has. The former assistant director of Arrow openly stated just 3 weeks ago on a podcast that, we have videos of these black triangles that move in ways that we don't understand. Okay, if it's our technology and we can move in ways like that, why are planes still crashing at Reagan Airport? That there's something non-human here, and it's been here for a long time, is my provisional conclusion. The question is not, that people should ask is not, is there something here? You have to ask the question first, can there something be here? And the short answer is, of course there can, because the universe is full.
Gonna say, probably misspoke. Can there something be here? Can there be something here? Is what he meant to say. But yeah, there definitely can be something here, I believe. I think that's 100% realistic. There's a lot of stuff here, right? It's a planet rich with life.
14 billion years old. You could have gotten from one side of the galaxy to the other in our galaxy in Elon Musk's Tesla if it were traveling at 10,000 miles an hour, right? But what got on in the first place doesn't mean the same thing as what gets off on the other side.
Now that is a very interesting perspective. Even though you're traveling at that fast speed, it's still going to take an immense amount of time. What starts out on one end might evolve and change to something different on the other end. Very fascinating stuff to think about.
What it is, I'm not 100% sure, and I feel very uncomfortable with the sightings of biological beings, if only because they just look a little too much like us, and I just can't see from a genetics point of view why the human form is so, or even 2 legs and 2 arms is necessarily biologically the most successful shape. So
now that's the same, very similar thing that Dr. Masters says, is that of all of the shapes that life could take, the hominid 2 legs, 2 arms would probably not be the optimal shape, considering, gravitational forces and things like that throughout the galaxy. So that begs the question, why? Why hominid? Why are so many of the species that folks are referring to hominid? And it's a question we should be asking, because until we can rule out, a theory, it should be on the table.
So I think there's something here. I think the data, the evidence of the hypothesis, there's more than enough evidence to say that it's worth investigating. So I would ask my colleagues to just hold their sarcasm for a while. I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but I mean, I did get a phone call from somebody representing the White House because I was talking about something that they felt was a little too on the edge.
Holy shit. So here we go. Call from the White House. Well, Jim Semivan was just telling us anything in this field that's going to get out to the public is going to get out because the White House says it's okay.
They said, you need to just shut up, Gary. So that I conclude that there's definitely something here. But I think the more interesting conclusion is if something is here, it's likely been here longer than humans have even been civilized. So it really opens the question, and actually it's something that I think Charles Fort actually said, is, Earth is probably somebody else's property.
Wow. Pretty crazy stuff. Let that roll around in your brain for a minute. And while we do that, I'm going to switch it up a little here. Matthew Roberts is a U.S. Naval Intelligence officer who had an experience with a being after viewing the gimbal film. Now, he wasn't the pilot. He wasn't the original radar operator, nothing like that. He essentially was just one of the first people to view this gimbal film and then started experiencing this hitchhiker effect, which Semivan and Nolan both just referred to. Now, Mr. Roberts' story hasn't gotten a lot of coverage, at least not a ton from the mainstream. And I think it's because of the abduction topic. Like, a lot of the larger news outlets really just don't want to cover the abduction topic. And if you mention MILABs, they really don't want to have anything to do with it. So Matthew Roberts here, he has explained his experience on a couple of different shows here. And so I wanted to share that with the folks because it's just not something that you see a lot of. I've referred to it a couple times in the past and have had just a heck of a time locating the information. So here we go. We're going to listen to and we're going to watch Matthew Roberts' experience after he had observed the gimbal video and what can only really be described as like a hitchhiker type interaction afterwards.
First event that happened, I had an entity in my room. One night I woke up because something grabbed my arm, and I woke up. I thought, well, my room is going blurry for some reason. So I went to try to raise my hands to my face and kind of wipe the sleep out of my eyes, and I couldn't move. I realized I could not move, and that I woke up because someone was grabbing my arm. Mm-hmm. So I, fought to kind of turn my head to.
Now, my friend Ryan from Ryan's Pointing at Failure, another excellent channel, would say that just sounds like sleep paralysis. Okay, fair enough. But my problem with that is every time one of these cases comes up, it's sleep paralysis. And I have a hard time believing that every single case that's what it is. And I think Ryan would at least agree with that they're just based on the sheer volume alone. There's probably a few of these that sleep paralysis isn't the explanation. There's something else going on.
The right to see who was standing there, and I just saw this shadow of a torso, two arms, and a head kind of bending over looking at me. And as I'm looking at this, the behind this shadow figure, there was this golden light just started to light up my room. And then it became very bright golden light, and the light concentrated into rays of light coming out of its head. And then there was a sexual experience, and I could see that this female who was there had blue skin. My hands were on her thighs, and I could feel her skin, and it was not like normal human skin. It was much thicker than human skin would be. And then I woke up the next morning, and I felt like I wanted to throw up, completely violated. But you know what kind of pulled me back from that feeling of violation was the fact that there was this whole light show associated with it. And I started to think to myself, well, that looks like religious art that I've seen from all over the world. And so, that kind of pulled me back and kept me from jumping to conclusions throughout the experience, which I think is something that people have a problem with, right? Something like this happens to you, and you want to just jump to, oh my gosh, it's evil. This is an evil thing. This can't be happening. I need to be afraid of this. So on and so forth. I came across this book in a very terrifying and paranormal way, and it was a book called The Kybalion.
Okay, so The Kybalion, published in 1908 under the pseudonym Three Initiates. The Kybalion presents itself as a compact manual of Hermetic philosophy, a modern distillation of teachings attributed loosely to the mythical Egyptian sage Hermes Trismegistus. Most scholars now link its authorship to Chicago-based occult writer William Walker Atkinson, possibly with collaborators. Collaborators, I'd imagine, comes from the fact that it's called the Initiates, plural, and not singular, the Initiate. I find it interesting that Matthew says here that he came across this book in this super scary, freaky way, yet somehow a book called The Kybalion made him feel a little bit better about his situation. And then he continues to go deeper into what he's experiencing instead of backing away and asking for some help and some guidance. That to me, I find very, very interesting. Let's let him finish up here.
And when I first read it one night, I read the synopsis of the book online. I thought, oh, I'm not reading that, and so I guess I'm going to be reading this book, because there's certainly more there than I realize. Let's learn. I'm ready for more.
He reads the synopsis. He's like, there's no way of reading this book. He comes across this book in this super creepy way he won't even talk about. So he's got to read it. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
Which nothing could have been farther from the truth, because the next thing that happened was that sexual experience in my room. Because here I was trying to understand something, and I thought I was learning, and then I felt like I was just, and what is that, and so it really just kind of threw me into this downward spiral of just the deepest depression I have ever been in my life. I was having constant nightmares. I would wake up to the sound of a woman in my house screaming.
So after reading the book, diving deeper into it, he starts having these further really disturbing experiences, including waking up to full on a woman screaming inside of his house. So The Kybalion, I'm going to put that on the no read list. Moving on. So we heard Gary Nolan talk about Skywatch a couple times. Pretty interesting stuff. Now, this is the Skywatcher Discovery Framework. You can actually download this. And April 2025 is really the last official update that we had from Skywatcher. So I show you this just to say you can go to the website and you can download this. Folks do seem to be getting a little impatient, but remember, I mean, April, you're talking 4, not even a full 4 months yet. So let's give them some time. They got a lot of battles to fight. They've got the government on one hand, they've got private contractors, military contractors on the other hand, and then they have this giant unknown, right? This huge unknown. Like, they don't even know if what they're looking at, how to classify it. So they have got a ways to go. I don't know if I'm 100% on, Team Skywatch or not, but I will say I'm very, very excited for the data. I'm looking forward to the data. I'm willing to give them time. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight, and, certainly not in a few months. So I would say to folks watching this or listening to this right now, let's give Skywatch team some more time, and allow them to complete their research before completely throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because, we don't want to wait any longer. Now, had some interesting statements made about Jake Barber on my last podcast with Eric Hecker. If you want, you can go check that out. It's pretty interesting insight. Now, Eric also shared recently a CIA document, which you can find on deciphering.tv. Now, I thought this was really interesting because, first off, you see now the subject of this recently declassified document is how putting in a request to discover remote viewers. And you can see from the highlighted portion down at the bottom, this was the Center Lane Special Access Program, or what we know as SAP, SAP. Some interesting things I've highlighted here. Obviously, this is a 3-phase plan. The objective of this effort is to investigate a particular aspect of psychoenergetics relating to operational management of personnel. When applied to a general population, this will delineate specific individuals who exhibit a higher degree of talent for remote viewing. You can see the different phases. There's I can't even speak. The different phases there as you go through the document. Data will be collected by using an extended Wechsler test. Dr. David Saunders and Dr. Michael Hecker were involved. Analysis of the self-report data will be carried out using the BPS, the Behavior Prediction System concept, to generate a scoring key capable of extracting those individuals. So that means the highest classification involved in the performance of the contract is secret, classified level 4, no foreign dissemination, originator controlled. Basically means if you don't have a need to know about the program, you don't know about the program. Now, what this means, the bigger picture, is essentially that this was in the mid-'80s. So as recently as the mid-'80s, we have declassified documents of requests for more funds to disseminate potential remote viewers from others and utilize them as assets. You can't make this stuff up, folks. So what are we going to see in 20, 30 years when the documents from today become declassified? Oh, I don't know. But I'm willing to bet that we're going to see a lot of stuff from social media, and we're going to see a lot of stuff from AI, because clearly there's some fuckery going on here. All right, y'all. No matter what kind of ontological shock you may have researching this topic, reading a book, watching a podcast, or having an experience, remember your autonomy and who you are as a person is important. Whether you completely trust Semivan or you completely distrust Semivan, I believe one seed of truth we can pull out of that and maybe agree on is to consider what or who you're opening yourself up to before you do that. We heard a lot about MILABs today, and I am going to make this kind of a focus of some videos, a few videos at least, going forward, as I do find the topic quite fascinating if we can turn up any new evidence of this, well, pretty shady. I guess at this point it would be an unacknowledged special access program. Some interesting stuff has surfaced about Epstein, and I would say that if you cared about making those criminals pay for what they did, don't fall into the trap of letting it go and forgetting about it. We're so easily distracted when it comes to topics. And that's when I think whether you're left, whether you're right, center, up, down, it don't matter. We need to protect our kids, and we need to punish those that harm them. Thank you so much again for tuning in to the Gabriel Speaks Podcast. I'll see you next time, and we're excited to go over who our next guest will be soon. Remember to follow me on X. Don't forget to like and subscribe on here. My username in X is GSpeaks Show. You can see it here, so that's at GSpeaks Show at X. I do sometimes drop a little teaser on a current interview or video I'm working on there before fully releasing it here on YouTube or Spotify. I'll see you next time, y'all. Don't forget to stay safe and stay grounded.